Is any update on Scott Wright, Dad?
Do you know what? It's one of them things, isn't it? You think to yourself, you hear that he's back in training weeks
Yeah.
ago and he's not far away, but they seem to be really, but you haven't heard anything about a setback. Yeah,
No?
so I find it all very, very strange. I don't know.
He's the exact kind of player we're missing.
If he was to be back, that would be brilliant. So welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue. And 2025 is upon us soon, and Birmingham City's first match in 2025 is on New Year's Day away at Stockport County. Now, we played Stockport a few weeks ago. It's one of those fixtures that teams that we've played, that we've recently played, and now we're playing again. So we know a little bit about them. And in this video, myself and Matt are going to have a chat about Stockport, give our usual opinions on a few maybe stats about them, and also what we think about the Blues team that will be picked for this fixture. So, Matt, quite a tough away game for New Year's Day, I believe.
I'd say so. I'd say, when we did our video a few weeks back, Dad, about the next 5 games,
Yeah.
I think most Blues fans will admit Blackpool and Stockport, particularly Stockport, were the two that we were looking at as the biggest challenge, I think, over this period. Both teams coming into this have the back of drawers. We had a disappointing 0-0 against Blackpool, and they had a 1-1 against Rotherham. So, we're top of the league. Stockport are in 5th. But actually, we're quite stat heavy on this podcast, Ed. When we go through the stats, this game is actually, I think, is pointing to a very close competition, to be fair. I mean, we only played them on the 4th of December, so as you say, Dad, it feels like we were sitting here yesterday only talking about the home game, to be honest. So a team which we are familiar with. But just to refresh ourselves with form since then, so Stockport have beat Exeter 2-0. They lost to Stevenage 2-1. They beat Peterborough 2-1. They lost to Huddersfield 1-0. And, of course, they drew with Rotherham 1-1 this weekend. They have had a cup game in there as well, but just obviously referencing the league here. So not bad form, but a little bit hit and miss there. A few wins, few losses, few draws. But their home form is fantastic. And, obviously, we are travelling away. They're averaging 2.09 at home. They've played 11, won 7, drew 2, lost 2.
Yeah, it's good.
Pretty good home form, that,
yeah, I mean, they're a solid team in as much as you can't forget that they came up from League Two last season. So they're in a solid season. They won League Two above Wrexham, didn't they, last season?
And they won the conference above Wrexham the year before that, didn't they?
Yeah, so they're making a really good, first season back in League One for a while. You are right, their home form is excellent. I mean, they've got the 5th best home form in the whole division. There's only Huddersfield, ourselves, Reading and Wrexham above them. So they've got 23 points from their 11 games at home. So they're stronger at home. Their away form isn't too bad. They score quite a few goals. Obviously, Louie Barry will be his last game. This is going to be a farewell for Louie Barry. So he's going to be up for this, isn't he? He's going to want to
especially being Blues.
Yeah. So it's going to be, we'll have to keep an eye on him. Though we did nullify him at St.Andrews. Bielek did a fantastic job.
Bielek kept him completely quiet.
Yeah. Goal wise, they've scored the 6 highest goals in the whole of the division, scoring 35 in 23. And there's only Reading, Huddersfield, ourselves, Peterborough and Wickham have scored more goals. And they don't concede loads of goals. They've only conceded 24 goals in 23 games. This is actually a tough game. Now, we're a different, we look at things at home, we look at them slightly differently. But when you go to away grounds, they often find that teams are quite strong at home. And Stockport are definitely an example of a very, very strong home team. This again is another tough game. Like you said, when we did the 5 fixtures, Matt, this was the one that we stood out really as that's a tough game.
Yeah, definitely, Dad. And as I said, when you look at all the stats, it points to a close game. You look at their goals scored, our goals conceded. When you match up their points per game at home compared to our points per game away, you're literally dividing micro points. It's really, really going to be close. And I think we got a really good insight into them on the 4th of December, didn't we, Dad? I don't think Stockport were a bad team, actually. Although we won 2-0, Alfie May scored 2 on the night. You could see that they had moments of quality, didn't you? I mean, they weren't a great team. They didn't play great that night. I've seen them play much better in other games. I think that's credit to Blues. I think we pressed well. We had a good night that night. We kind of nullified the Stockport plan. But the famous video of Chris Davies had in the changing rooms was after the Stockport game, and he mentioned about it as being a proper unit and a proper team. And I think that was a game of 2 halves. I felt like we won the Stockport game in the first half because we went 2-0 up. And then the second half, we got caught up in a very physical battle. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And I've been so impressed in this second half of the first part of the season, sounds like a weird thing to say, with our battle and winning the second ball and our tenacity. And I think in the second half, they went man-to-man. They kind of threw the kitchen sink at it because in the pre-match video I mentioned that Stockport prefer placement over press. So they're not a team out of possession which are overly aggressive. They will tend to stick to their man. We saw it in the second half against Blues. So I think, again, it's going to be a very physical battle. I think they won't go man-to-man straight away. I think they're the home team, aren't they? And they've got good home form.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're going to come at us. They're not going to pay us any respect, I don't think, at home, Stockport. But we could end up getting caught up in a physical battle. But I think, a key battle of this game is going to be on the wings. And that makes me a little bit worried off the back of the Blackpool game.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna presume we will play Sano on the left and Keshi on the right, which will give us that width again. We'll come on to the Blues team in a minute, Dad. But for me, big element to this game, because Stockport like to play this way as well. It's going to be on the wings.
It is. I hope Anderson is not injured. We don't know because he was missing, wasn't he, from the
Fatigued apparently.
Yeah, well, hopefully he is just fatigued, but we are going to need him as well. Just to remind viewers, some of the strengths of Stockport, counter attacks. That's clear that they're very good at doing that. Creating long shot opportunities and also creating chances with individual skills. You've seen a few goals that Louie Barry scored where he's just drifting around players, a little bit like Jack Grealish-ish.
Did it against Rotherham.
Yeah,
at the weekend, just scored from about 25 yards.
So they play attacking down the left, which is obviously where Louie Barry is positioned. He's probably
And the right.
Yeah,
they're very good on the wings.
Yeah, short passes, attempting through balls often, and a possession-based team as well where they can. So they're a decent team. Louie Barry's their top scorer at the moment with 15 goals. Then you've got Carl Wootton with 6 goals, and then there's a few with 3s and 2s. Louie Barry's also got 3 assists. So they're the two danger men really from a forward line, Louie Barry and Carl Wootton. So again, we're going to have to really keep an eye on them. I think he may revert back, Chris Davis, to paying Bielek again at right back. That would mean no. We'll talk about the Blues. In fact, we'll hold that because we'll come to the Blues team in a minute. Okay, but yeah, a really tough game. They play predominantly. They play a 4-2-3-1, similar to us.
Yeah.
Actually, formation. And but that's quite fluid and flexible, so they can transition quite well. And we saw that, didn't we? Particularly in the second half, when they came at us a little bit. But I think because they're at home, I agree with you. I think that they will literally come at us. I think that we need to be really strong in the first 20 minutes.
And we are prone to starting games slowly, aren't we?
Yeah, we've got to increase our tempo. It's just too slow. It's frustrating as well because if you ping the ball around quicker, the chances are you'll open up gaps. But we tend to, rather than go forward, turn and go back and just leisurely pass the ball. That's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
I think that we need a high tempo. We really need to go at these because I think this is one of the tougher away games in the league. I do.
Yeah, agreed, Dad. And we've seen it a few times this season, and I hope this doesn't happen at the weekend, but Stockport are very good. And I've seen this a couple of times this season, to be fair. I saw it when they played Wrexham not too long ago before our game on the 4th. They're very good at getting teams to adapt to the way they want them to play. So again, they try and force it through the middle. Sometimes they try and force it out on the wings. And as I say, they like to get caught up in one-to-one battles, especially on the flank. So they're going to be very aggressive. They're going to try and be very dominant in that particular area of the game. And I hope, because we have been suckered in a couple of times, haven't we, Dad? We've been suckered in to playing the game the opposition wants us to play, especially away from home. So, as I say, I still think that if we play our game, we stick to our strategy, we put players back in the right positions and we go back almost to default of the way we've been playing, I think we'll be absolutely fine. I think we do have enough quality to win this game, I really do. But there's no doubt with their home form, with the quality they do possess, it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, just to give you some of their home results because they are good. They beat Wrexham 1-0. They had a 5-0 defeat at home to Wycombe, which I think shocked everybody in terms of the margin of that. But then they beat Reading 4-1 at home. They beaten Bolton 5-0 at home. They lost 4-1 at home to Orient. So they seem to be like, they can have mad results in terms of their favour and they can lose silly games as well. They beat Exeter 2-0 and they've beaten Peterborough, Bristol Rovers, Cambridge. They're strong at home and I think that's clear and that's something we need to be weary of. But I think the key thing for us is going to be the Blues team and I think should we talk about that now?
Let's go on for it. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, because I've got a few notes there, but we mentioned it in the pre-video. They've got a couple of really good players. Norwood and Bate in the centre mid. Norwood in particular really controls the game. They've got a centre half called Horsfall, really like him, dominant in the air. A bit like Clara, wins his aerial battles, quite dominant. So they've got some good players. We have to be wary, as you say. Nice segue there to bring us on to the Blues, Dad. So
well, before we do that, I mean, it's worth just reminding our viewers of the changes that were made. We had 6 changes against in the last game we just played against Blackpool. And in that game, Chris Davis decided to put Stansfield on the bench. with Ben Davies on the bench as well. He put Taylor Gardner-Hickman at right back. Not Cochrane. Cochrane wasn't even in the squad.
No.
He was rested. Hansen was on the left. And he had Dykes at number 9. Alfie at number 10 and Williamson out on the right. So if you haven't seen the video we put out yesterday, which is the post-match Blackpool video, all the details in there. So go pop along and have a look at that if you want a bit more detail on that. But there was a lot of changes, and we felt in that video, if you watched it, that it just or too many. You used the word disjointed, and it did feel like that. And I think we need to go back to putting players in their proper positions.
In fact, Dad, I've gone back. I can make this one really quite short. I've gone back to the exact team that we played against Stockport on the 4th of December. Do you want me to go through the team?
Go, that's a good idea. Go through it, yeah.
So just to remind people that the formation and the team we had against Stockport was the 4-2-3-1. This is the team, and this is the exact team I think we should play and start against Stockport on the 1st. So Allsop in goal, Cochrane left back, Davies left side of centre back, Clara right side of centre back, Bielek right back, Awata and Paik in the middle, Anderson on the right, Williamson in the 10, Stansfield on the left, and Alfie May in the 9. That's what we played on the 4th, and that's exactly what we should go back to, in my opinion, pending Cochrane, Clara, and Anderson. A few niggles there. We've got an injury. I appreciate that. So that might move around slightly, but for me, that's the team.
That should be the team. But again, this is going to be our 4th game out of 5 in a very, very short period of time. So if he decides to rotate, so I agree with that team. And I don't know if Blues fans agree with that. Maybe you could let us know in the comments below. I think that's the team we should play, right? But let's just play just very quickly a little bit of devil's advocate then. Mm-hmm. So if, let's say, Anderson is not fit, what do we do then?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because then you start messing around with putting players out of position again, don't you? If you don't play people in their authentic position. So, yeah, that is the one I'm really hoping Keshi Anderson comes back fit. Because you might be talking Yakayama gets a start.
On the right?
Possibly. He might shift Stano onto the right and then put Yakayama on the left. Or put Yakayama straight on the left.
But Barnsley, before Cochrane got injured, he started off with Ethan Laird for 2 minutes before. So that could work. Even possibly Taylor Gardner-Hickman. Yeah. You could put him on the right. But I think we said this as well, didn't we, in the Blackpool post-match video? It shows us that we do tend to have a little bit light when we have injuries in the wings.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
and that's the problem. I think that Sanderson will be on the bench because I've got a feeling that I've just got this feeling that Clara, picked up that hip injury. He might at least rest him if it's not too serious. Obviously, we'll have a Bailey Peacock Farrell in goal.
He's on your down, Scott Wright, Dad.
You know what? It's one of them things. You think to yourself. You hear that he's back in training weeks ago and he's not far away, but they seem to be really but you haven't heard anything about a setback. No. So I find it all very, very strange. I don't know.
He's the exact kind of player we're missing.
If he was to be back, that would be brilliant. But if he is fit, it's unlikely he'll start him because you're not going to bring the player straight in as well. But I agree with you. That team that started against Stockport, I think that's our strongest team anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's our strongest team, and I hope that he goes back to that because we've got to play our players. I think the Blackpool performance showed Chris Davies that you've got to put players in their right position. I also think as well, Williamson needs to up his game a little bit. I think he's been sluggish last couple of games, hasn't he? I mean, in the Blackpool game, you could argue because he was in the wrong position, but then you say, well, you're still in the team, you've still got a job to do, so therefore he should be better. But he's been good for us over the season because he scored goals and assists. But last couple of games, he's just been off the pace a bit for me.
I mean, against Blackpool, no one was painted in glory, were they? But if you're going to take the last 3 or 4 games, Williamson has not quite been to the standard we've had earlier on in the season. As he has had definitely a poor run of games now. But that won't have helped shifting him on the right. For me, I'm going to say it again. Williamson's a 10 or he's not on the pitch. Alfie May's a 9 or he's not on the pitch.
I agree.
If that means they're on the bench or they're not used, I would rather that than them be in the wrong positions because we've seen how disjointed it is when we play players in the wrong position. But the big one for me is Alfie May in the 10. He's not a 10. No. He looks lost. It doesn't work.
No. But for Blackpool, he was coming into our own half to get the ball.
Exactly.
It wasn't working, was it? The other thing that maybe is a possibility, if he wants to rest Williamson, or you give him a game off, you could potentially look at Mark Leonard in the number 10, possibly. because you have Leonard Pake and a Water.
Have you noticed that we have an option, but not one of us at the minute?
Luke
Let's
Harris.
pick Luke Harris.
Luke Harris, yeah, I must admit, I think over the last few games, I don't think he's covered himself in glory. And again, this is not about like scapegoating the player. I just think that he looked lost against Blackpool when he had the ball. And
Chris Davis really likes him though. And again, I'm going to say every time because I feel like players at Blues do get scapegoated sometimes. I think Harris is a very talented player.
Yeah, me too.
He just hasn't worked out at the moment for Birmingham City.
He's young,
but
yeah.
Chris Davis seems to want to keep playing him over. As I said in the Blackpool post, he's picked him over Williamson before, Leonard before, various other players. And, he's a loanee from Fulham who isn't quite hitting the standard yet. Play our own players.
Yes, I agree, and I always felt that when Luke Harris was signed, that he'd be like a substitute, but he's been more than that. He's been starting a lot of games, hasn't he?
Chris Davis really likes him.
Yeah, I mean, he did well. He scored against Wickham. Do you remember? He had the cross from
right in front of
Yokoyama.
us.
Yeah, he was. Yes, across from Yokoyama, and he's obviously clearly got pace. He's clearly got ability. It's just that it doesn't seem to click with the team.
Agreed. Yeah.
He doesn't click, and
he looks at. Sorry, excuse me. He looks a bit out of place, don't he?
Yeah, and as I say, he's a young player, and he is going to be a very good player. You can tell that. But at the moment, I just don't think he's for a starter.
But what's interesting, Dad, is we've mentioned there, we've gone through the right and the left and the wings, and we didn't even mention his name. I think that speaks volumes in and of itself, really. The fact you don't think of a player when it comes to a position where you are arguably a little bit shy and short.
Yeah, because you're right. Because he could, if Anderson is injured, he could pick Harris on the right.
Yeah.
Could do, but with Chris Davis as well, because he seems to like him, that is a possibility as well. But I agree with you, and I think it's interesting that you brought up the team that started against Stockport last time, because that would be my preferred starting lineup. Yeah. And as it happens, none of those players at the moment seem to be injured. Given hopefully Anderson is just being rested against Blackpool. But I mean, it's going to be a tough game for us. One we do need to win. And one we need to, keep the momentum going at the top of that league. Yeah. But I think this is a particularly tough game. So do you want to give a score prediction before we finish?
Really quickly, one final point for me. I'll give my score prediction, Dad, and then we'll close the video. I've been so impressed with our ability recently to win the second ball and our tenacity out of possession and our fight and our battle. I felt like Blackpool got the better of us in the last game in that regard. They were winning their second balls. They're slightly better with their individual battles. I think when you're playing Stockport on their home turf, you need to get that back. Yep. You need to get that fighting spirit back. You need to be dominant in this game. A bit like the 4th of December, Louie Barry can't have an inch. Their other winger, I forgot his name on the right, can't have an inch. We need to really suffocate and dominate on those wings, because that's where this game's going to be won or lost for me, because it's key. So for me, I just want to have a point, Dad, about getting that snap and that fight back and winning that second ball for Blues. Score prediction then. I've almost got 2 score predictions. I've almost got one if he plays a botched team. Well, not a botched team, but a disjointed team. And one if he plays the team we are. But I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to go for the team that hopefully he plays from the 4th of December. So that a full-strength team, Anderson back, let's say, Clara fit. And I'm going to go for Stockport 1. I think they'll score, but Birmingham City 2. I've gone 2-1 Blues.
That's what I've gone for 2-1 as well, Blues. Yeah, I think this will be a tight game, and I think we need to get back to ourselves. We weren't ourselves against Blackpool, and that's partly because of the team selection and the players out of position. But I've gone for 2-1 as well. Just one final point then before we finish. Let's play devil's advocate again. Mm-hmm. Let's say Clara's not fit. How do you see the team shaping up there?
So I would go Cochrane, Ben Davies on the left, Bielek on the right, and I'd stick Taylor Gardner-Hitman right back. And don't get me wrong, Taylor Gardner-Hitman didn't have a great game against Blackpool. I appreciate a few loose balls there, but I still like his tenacity. He wants the ball, he wants to go forward. I personally think he's our best right back.
Yeah, okay. So you wouldn't go, obviously not even mention Sanderson in there.
I wouldn't put Sanderson in, and I wouldn't play Ethan Laird either.
Yeah.
Just my personal preference.
No, I think I'd agree with that. Yeah, so you bring Bielek.
But I'd put Sanderson on the bench for obviously cover, and Laird would make it on the bench as well.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't start them.
Let's hope he's fit. It's hard to tell with those type of injuries because they're quite niggly, aren't they?
But to throw it back to your right back, you be picking Gardner-Hitman over Laird?
Yeah, I think so. Because I just like it. I just like his tenacity. You know, he's got a bit of bite about him, hasn't he, Taylor Gardner-Hitman? We're going to need to be strong down that side because of Louie Barry. I would suggest that he'd probably want Bielek at right back, and if he tries to fit Bielek into that right back without Clara, then it's going to be Sanderson. It's going to have to be,
Yeah.
isn't it? Really, because obviously Buchanan could have played at centre half, but he's injured.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
And who did you decide for? Again, let's say Keshi Anderson doesn't make it. Who are you picking for the right in that scenario? Let's say Keshi Anderson is injured or can't make the game.
So if he's injured, well, definitely not Williamson. I think I'd tend to possibly think about putting Stansfield over there and put Yokoyama on.
Agreed.
That's
Coming back to our first point.
Yeah. I think that would be put again. If I'm Chris Davies, I would be looking at. I want to play. My first port of call would be which players go in their natural positions, not swapping it around.
Agreed.
As I say, and I say one final point. Made the point when Chris Davies made the substitution at half time against Blackpool when he brought on Jace Stansfield for Lyndon Dykes. He had the opportunity to move the team around, but he didn't. He put Jace Stansfield up front as the number 9 when he could have put Stansfield on the left, moved Williamson into the number 10, moved Luke Harris onto the right, put Alfie in the number 9. That was all on the pitch. It could have worked.
Yeah.
We didn't. So, it's interesting, isn't it, Blues fans, about the team selection. We'd love to know who you think will start. Clearly, it's difficult, isn't it, at the moment because of injuries and maybe possible rotation. But, yeah, pop a comment below. Let us know your thoughts. If you're a Stockport County fan, love to hear your thoughts as well. Always welcome the opinions of away fans. So pop your comments below as well, and we'll take a look at them. If you did like this podcast, as always, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't checked us out on our social media channels already, pop along to our X page and our Instagram page. And if you like to listen or watch your podcast on Spotify, you'll find us on there as well now. And you'll see the handles appearing on the screen for all of these channels right now. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also, if you want to be notified every time we put a new podcast out, just hit that bell notification next to the subscribe button, and then you'll get notified each time we put a new video out. So that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. And myself and Matt will see you on the next one, all about Birmingham City.